Good morning and welcome to the Southeastern Small Business Lending Virtual Conference Series for 2021. Excited to have everyone here participating in this series. My name is Thomas Rockwood. I'm the chair of the GOQC board that puts on this event. We're excited for today's session and we're going ahead and get started at this time. So today is day one of our 6-session series. We're talking with the SBA headquarters on hot topics. I want to say a quick thank you to Acclivity Financial as our sponsoring today. And we've got a few quick announcements as we go through some items before we get into the panelist discussion. Again, my name is Thomas Rockwood. I'm with Atlantic Capital Bank, the board chair. Go ahead and introduce the rest of our board members as well. Can't do this conference without all of their help, and want to say specific thank yous to everybody. So Shante Johnson with Capital Partners, Sherry Martin with Georgia Primary Bank, Cheryl Montgomery with Ameris Bank, Allison Markovich with Morris, Manning and Martin, Kim Eels with Georgia Primary Bank, Emily Patch with Acclivity Financial, Frank Bentley with United Community Bank, Amy Baker with Stites and Harbison, Carrie Morin with Paragon Bank, Ty Massey with TD Bank, and Steve Filmer with Kraft Bank, and Ricky Moore with Forestall CPAs. I can't thank them enough for all of their work over the last year or two at this point. So just as a recap, in lieu of our conference that we had planned in February, at that time, the board made a decision to go ahead and shift to a virtual series. We're going to be holding a virtual series on these topics the first Tuesday of every month from now until November. So July 13th, we're talking about international trade loans, PPP forgiveness, how to underwrite COVID. In August, we'll look at USDA, construction lending, environmental due diligence. September, we're talking about closing attorney panel workshop, managing a remote workforce, business valuations. October, we're going to look at the secondary market, franchise space, pitfalls of debt refinancing. And then we're going to end the series in November with updates on the 504 and SOPs that have come out, as well as another subject on valuations. Also very excited to say that GOQC is hosting our first in-person event. We have a summer retreat planned at this point. We're going to be going to the Inn at Serenbe, which is in just southwest Atlanta. It's a 36-acre farm. Pretty excited to go back and see everybody. If you can, please register. It's $199 for the weekend for GOQC members, $299 for non-members. You can register via the Lenders Connect community or the GOQC website. We'll start off on Friday. We'll have some sessions and content on Saturday, but really it's a time just to get together and see each other. Now that it's been over 2 years since we've been at our last in-person conference. So please check it out. If you can come, we'd love to have you. It's just a really unique property and a great time for networking and meeting back together face-to-face. Again, can't thank enough for our sponsors. We here on this page here have our silver and gold sponsors. I'll take a minute, please go ahead and if you know any of these individuals, thank them for their sponsorship and continued support of GOQC and the Southeastern Small Business Lenders Conference. Here are our platinum sponsors. Our diamond sponsors for these events, we have GCF Business Valuations, Georgia Small Business Capital, Fran Data Franchise Business Intelligence, Windsor Advantage. And our presenting sponsor, Acclivity Financial, can't thank them enough for their support and continued. I'm going to turn this over to Carolyn Robinson, who's going to then introduce our first speaker of the day. So thank you very much for your participation. Thanks, Carolyn.
Good morning. Thank you, Thomas. My name is Carolyn Robinson. I'm a senior vice president with Acclivity Financial, which is a subsidiary of Citizens Bank. I've been in SBA lending since about 1998. I originate SBA and USDA loans nationwide. Of course, Acclivity is a preferred lender. We've been in business since 2015. Last year, we did about 160 million in government guaranteed loans. This year, we think we will do more than that. So thank you for having me, and I would like to introduce Janita Stewart. Janita Russell Stewart, a Vicksburg, Mississippi native, is a graduate of the U.S. Small Business Administration District Director Candidate Development Program, wherein she took on rotational assignments in directing the SBA offices in Charlotte and Atlanta. She received her BS from the University of Southern Mississippi in Hattiesburg and has over 40 years of federal government service. In addition to the SBA, she has also served in the U.S. Army, Corps of Engineers, in the Vicksburg and New Orleans districts, and the capacities of contract specialist, procurement analyst, small and disadvantaged business utilization specialist, and special assistant and advisor to the commander and district engineer for the Corps' multi-million-dollar small business programs. As the SBA District Director for the state of Mississippi, Stewart is responsible for supervising the activities of 13 employees in the Mississippi and Gulfport branch offices. Her responsibility entails the supervision of the delivery of a wide range of SBA programs and services to the small business community, including financial assistance, entrepreneurial development, minority small business, community, and related special emphasis programs such as women's business ownership, international trade, veterans affairs, and more. She oversees the state office of the Small Business Development Center, SBDC, at the University of Mississippi and its 7 SBDC sub-centers located at various colleges and universities throughout the state, along with 8 SBDC Business Assistance Center on the Gulf Coast chapter of SCORE. Some of Stewart's associations include Greater Jackson Chamber Partnership, Vicksburg Chamber of Commerce, Mississippi Economic Council, Mississippi Minority Business Alliance, Delta Regional Authority, Leadership Jackson Alumni, and former member of the Governor's Special Task Force for Economic Development Planning. She was also Federal Manager of the Year by the Greater Jackson Area Federal Execution Association and recipient of the Greater Jackson Area Federal Executive Association Pacesetter Award. She was an honoree of the Mississippi Business Journal's 50 Leading Business Women and named one of 50 of the most influential African Americans in Mississippi. Some of her favorite charities include Gateway Rescue Mission, DuPont Community Services, Habitat for Humanity, and Mississippi Food Network. Please welcome Janita Stewart.
Good morning, and thank you for the introduction, Carolyn. I appreciate that. Many thanks to the Southeastern Small Business Lenders Conference and to the Georgia Lenders Quality Circle, as well as all of the conference sponsors for the invitation to participate in your session this morning. I've been given the privilege of introducing the next speaker, but before I do that, I wanted to share just briefly some non-COVID related small business lending statistics in SBA's 8-state, 9-district Southeast region, which encompasses Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, North and South Carolina, Kentucky, and Tennessee. And also I want to share some stats for the state of Georgia. So for regular SBA 7A lending in the Southeast region, all of last federal fiscal year, 6,352 loans for $4.3 billion. So that's just to make a comparison here to where we are now this federal fiscal year in Region 4, 4,045 7A loans for $3.2 billion. That's as of June 2nd. On the SBA 504 lending side of the house, in our region last federal fiscal year, 1,119 loans for $955 million. And so far this federal fiscal year, as of June 2nd, 932 504 loans for $783 million. And as far as the micro lending is concerned in our region, last fiscal year, 568 loans were approved for $12.2 million. So far this year, 208 for $3.8 million, again, as of June 2nd. Now, in terms of the state of Georgia, in terms of SBA lending, combining 7A and 504, last federal fiscal year, 1,412 loans were approved for $1.2 billion, which served to create and retain 13,882 jobs. And so far this federal fiscal year, 961 7A and 504 loans for $856 million, 10,530 jobs were created and retained. As it relates to micro lending in Georgia, last year, 129 loans for $3.7 million. So far this year, 41 micro loans for $1.1 million. So again, as of June 2nd this year. So there's still just left, just under 4 months left in this current federal fiscal year. And it appears that we may be on track to pretty much be comparable to the last federal fiscal year, 2020, in terms of 7A and 504 lending, both regionally and also in the state of Georgia, in spite of COVID. And we want to thank you all, the lending institutions, for your participation in supporting small business lending through SBA's loan programs. And as we move forward, in helping small businesses and entrepreneurs in getting their businesses back on track. So I need to do just a quick spotlight on the SBA Georgia District Office leadership. That office is led by District Director Terry Dennison and Deputy District Director Ed Carballo. And as part of the Georgia District Office team, on board is their Lender Relations Division that primarily works with bank and non-bank lending institutions and certified development companies in their territory to promote SBA's loan programs. And some of you probably know Terry and you know Ed, but just in case you don't have their contact numbers and you need to get in touch with the Georgia District Office of the SBA, Terry can be reached at area code 404-331-0108, and Ed's number is 404-331-0116. Okay. Now I have the privilege of introducing the next SBA speaker, and I will present to you Deputy Associate Administrator for the Office of Capital Access, John Miller. In his role, John supports the Associate Administrator in leading the Office of Capital Access loan policy programs, technology, operations, and oversight, including the SBA's flagship 7A and 504 loan programs, the Surety Bond Guarantee Program, the Micro Loan Program, and the SBA's $120 billion portfolio of direct and guaranteed loans. But that dollar amount, of course, predates PPP. Previously, John served as the Director of Financial Program Operations and was responsible for the SBA's loan operations centers and portfolio management. He joined the SBA in 1999 as a commercial loan specialist in the Seattle District Office. Prior to that, he served at the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation for 9 years as a financial analyst in Irvine, California, and San Antonio, Texas. It is my pleasure to present to you John Miller, Deputy Associate Administrator for the Office of Capital Access.
Well, thank you very much, Janita. I really appreciate the introduction. And thank you all. Thank you for all that you're doing as the SBA Acting Region 4 Administrator. I also want to thank Thomas and the entire Georgia Lenders Quality Circle Board for inviting us here to speak today at this virtual conference. I understand this conference is often held in Asheville, which I've never been to, but I understand is an awesome venue, and I know we all look forward to once again attending in person. I bring greetings from our new Office of Capital Access Associate Administrator, Patrick Kelly. I say new, but in reality, as many of you know, Patrick is on his second tour of duty at SBA, formerly holding the positions of Deputy Associate Administrator in OCA and later Deputy Chief of Staff during the Obama administration. During that time, Patrick worked hard to improve our loan programs, and as many of you may remember, he sought a great deal of input from the industry. As my colleagues on this panel and I can attest to, his style has not changed. He's bringing the same level of energy to the job that he did then and is always seeking industry input into our programs, processes, and systems. I'm sure you will all notice positive changes to our programs in the near future. I'm also pleased to talk about our new administrator, Isabella Casillas Guzman, who was sworn in on March 17th of this year as our 27th SBA administrator. Administrator Guzman also served at SBA during the Obama administration as Deputy Chief of Staff. She's a very strong advocate dedicated to helping all small businesses and entrepreneurs achieve their dreams. Her vision for the agency is to bring back businesses, create jobs, and connect all entrepreneurs in America by providing the support they need to grow, and be resilient. Administrator Guzman's priorities for SBA are equity, customer-centric, and technology-driven. By promoting equity, SBA's people, processes, and systems will equitably support every small business that needs our help. Our economy is stronger when we support the entrepreneurial spirit and great ideas of all of our diverse communities and regions. SBA also needs to be customer-centric because small businesses are continually adapting and evolving to meet the demands of their customers and the marketplace they serve. The SBA must adapt and evolve as well and prioritize the needs of our customers, America's small businesses. And by being technology-driven, because SBA must be as entrepreneurial as the small businesses we serve and meet them where they are, which includes swiftly adopting innovative technology-based solutions to scale and deliver capital, markets, and networks efficiently to American small businesses. Now, as for the Office of Capital Access, there are two areas of immediate focus that we have been focused on: our PPP forgiveness and the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. First, we can't talk about PPP without acknowledging what a historic year it has been since the PPP kicked off just 14 months ago. Through your tireless work and that of the SBA employees, SBA guaranteed over 11.8 million PPP loans with an approved amount of $800 billion, all in just over a year. SBA also approved over $210 billion in COVID idle direct disaster loans during the same period, bringing the total portfolio of loans approved since COVID began to 1.2 trillion. That's a tenfold increase in the SBA loan portfolio, which had a balance of 120 billion, with most of it occurring in about 8 to 10 months when you consider the time gaps between rounds of funding. I'm afraid my computer has frozen up. There we go. Fortunately, during this time period in the throes of PPP, SBA lenders and lenders and processing centers did not have to deal with the massive amounts of defaulting SBA loans thanks to Section 1112 debt relief payments, which kept the portfolio performing well. Since April of last year, when the first debt relief payments were made, SBA has paid out $10 billion in debt relief payments on existing eligible loans and new loan approvals. As I mentioned earlier, our immediate focus in OCA right now is on forgiveness and the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. And first, let me talk about the Restaurant Fund. This is a relative newcomer to COVID relief programs. The program was authorized under the American Rescue Plan Act in March, and SBA launched the program May 3rd and will within the next week award all of the $28.6 billion authorized under the program. Under Patrick's leadership, OCA designed and executed the program, including procedures, forms, and systems necessary to award the fund grants quickly and accurately to the recovering restaurant industry. And SBA stands ready to extend the program for much needed relief if Congress authorizes additional funding. The loan forgiveness story certainly has not been as brief as RRF. SBA began accepting forgiveness decisions from lenders last August, but was not afforded the opportunity to begin forgiveness reviews until November. And you all know the consequences. The resulting forgiveness queue has been a source of frustration for you and your borrowers, and we are working on some changes to that process and the system, along with machine learning tools that will reduce the queue of pending forgiveness reviews noticeably over the next 2 weeks. We will then keep the inventory in check, resulting in a much shorter turnaround time. We know the urgency of the situation with borrowers' deferment period that is nearing an end later this summer. And we are asking all lenders to submit forgiveness decisions now, which will enable us to process forgiveness through the summer. We would much rather forgive a PPP loan than purchase and charge off a defaulted PPP loan. I'm sure you're all wondering also about the PPP guarantee purchase process as well. But with respect to my colleagues on the stage in the hot topic section, I've already stolen some of Jahoon Kim's thunder, so I will allow him to talk about that in a few minutes. Well, I want to thank you all for inviting me here to speak today. We've accomplished an incredible amount over the last year. We still have a lot of work ahead of us as we work through the PPP forgiveness and recovery. The team at SBA will continue to go above and beyond to support small businesses and our capital access programs, and we appreciate all the support we get from our lending partners. Now let's take a look at some of our recent numbers. Going to put the slide, try and share this. Bear with me. All right. All right, it's a multi-step process, but I think we're there. I hope you can all see the slides. First, let me go over some numbers in the PPP program. These are approvals through May 31st. And as you can see, there's the 11.8 million loans that we've approved for a net total of around $800 billion. With 5,467 lenders approving loans. The 2021 PPP, that is the Economic Aid Act, the first and second draw loans, we've approved over 6.6 million loans for $278 billion. There are a lot of numbers on this slide, but I wanted to, I highlighted some specifically to call out. First of all, this is just 2021. The first draw loans, as you can see, 3.8 million loans approved, and the average loan size of only 18,000 is very remarkable. For our second draw loans, we had 2.9 million and $209 billion with an average size of just over $71,000. And so for your total of 6.7 million loans, $278 billion, we had an average loan size of around $42,000. The lenders who participated in PPP, this is 2021 round, obviously banks and mainly banks of less than $10 billion, over 4,000, followed by the fintech lenders, small business lending companies, our micro lenders. And we had a lot of a lot of credit unions involved in PPP. Then that follows with the CDFIs and on down the line, for a total number of lenders of 5,242 are participating. So a very wide reach as far as our lending community. Here are the average, the loan sizes by different buckets. As you can see, the 50,000 and under had $91 billion. That was by far the highest number, 87% at 50,000 and under, with an average loan size again of 42,000. Now let me talk about, let me show you the slides on our cap access lending. This is data as of April 30th. As you can see, the 7A lending activity is starting to tick up after 2 straight years of a downward trend. We think that the lending will increase even more over the summer as lenders now shift from PPP origination back to 7A originations. 504 lending activity has continued to have another strong year after 2020 and 2019. The program is currently up around 22% year over year between this year and last year. And I'm sure, as all of you know, the interest rates have had a lot to do with that, with borrowers wanting to fix it, lock in at low fixed rates. In addition to, we've had the 25-year debenture has really made a big difference in this program, putting it on parity with the 7A lending program. The lending for loans of up to $150,000 has declined quite a bit. A lot of this is due to the fact that the PPP lending program, PPP lending has taken a lot of attention of lenders over the past year. Same thing for the loans of $150,000 to $350,000. For SBA Express, we're seeing some return in the program. We've seen an uptick in lending, and we expect that to continue as the higher loan sizes of $1 million are really making a difference. And as many of you may know, the loan size, that is just a temporary, that's part of the Economic Aid Act. First it was the CARES, and Economic Aid extended the $1 million line of credit under SBA Express. That will reduce to $500,000 beginning October 1st. Franchise lending, which had some very strong gains in 2017 and 2018, appears to have leveled off, and that's both in the 7A and the 504 loan programs. Our microloan and community advantage, these are our mission programs. Under the microloan program, it looks like a drop off, but there's always a lag in reporting. So we do expect to see another record year in microlending this year. We'll have a strong summer, and do expect another record year. And in community advantage, we've had a drop off that has mirrored the small dollar 7A loans as in that program. This is a chart of our underserved markets. As I had mentioned, the administrator's focus is on equity in the programs to all small businesses. And the microloan is a good example of something we can all strive for. As you can see in minority lending in the microloans, 63% of approved number and 49% of approved dollar have gone to minorities. And for women, 46% of number and 38% of dollar. Veterans, there may be a reporting issue here. We saw higher veteran loan numbers in the past when we actually did track. When there were more fee waivers and fee relief for veteran lending, there was a higher reported incident of loans to veterans. And then finally, last but not least, in cap access, we have a surety bond guarantee program, which is a great program, especially for small businesses trying to get into contracting, both in the private sector, mainly in the private sector, but also in the government, and that small businesses needing bonding that can't obtain bonding on conventional terms will use this program. And we've seen an uptick in the bonding bid performance and payment bid performance activity. We also expect that under the American Jobs Plan, surety bonding, this program, we expect that it will really be a big focus of the administration in making sure that there's equity in contracts for not only federal but state and local governments that are moving forward and rebuilding the economy. And finally, that's it. So I will turn it back over to Thomas. Thank you again.
Thank you, John. I appreciate your remarks and presenting today and sharing that information. Next, we have our panel discussion. I'm excited to have these individuals participating today. They're going to have some general remarks to kind of kick us off. Please realize that there is a Q&A. If you've got any questions or if these things come up, feel free to post that to the panel's discussion. We'll try to get those addressed before the end of the session. For today's panelists, I'll introduce Diana Seaborn, the Director of Office of Financial Assistance, Rosemarie Drake, our 7A Program Chief, Office of Financial Assistance, Linda Riley, our 504 Program Chief, Office of Financial Assistance, Eddie Ledford, Deputy Director, Office of Credit Risk Management, and June Kim, Director of Office Financial Program Operations. I'll go ahead and turn it over to June to start us off with remarks, and after everyone's remarks, then we'll go ahead and open up for a Q&A discussion. Thank you, June.
Thanks, Thomas. Again, thanks for inviting us to this event. And like John said, our main focus in OFPO, who's responsible for operation arms of the SBA CapEx loan programs. We have 9 centers throughout the country, 3 centers that are responsible for the origination of the 7A and 504 loans, and the 3 centers that manage the servicing and liquidation of 7A and 504 loans, and then 3 centers that are responsible for managing the disaster loan servicing and liquidation. So with that, and this year, we have the honor to operationalizing the 7A PPP loan forgiveness process, as well as the origination of the RRF funding. So with that, I know that there's a lot of questions that is involved in the PPP loans and the forgiveness process. As John mentioned, the focus right now is to close the gap on the forgiveness that are pending in our portfolio. As John mentioned, there were some couple of decisions that were made that kind of delayed the review of the forgiveness process. But with that said, our focus is 100% on the forgiveness at this time, and hopefully we'll get you guys the result that you're seeking. So we'll go over some of the numbers. SBA has forgiven 3,450,000 loans for totaling $296 billion so far. 67% of the 2020 loans, about 56% of the dollar, has completed forgiveness reviews. We're gearing up to process a 2021 forgiveness application. So portal is open to accept 2021 forgiveness application or decision from the lenders. We will be processing then for the payments within coming days. So you will be seeing some payments going out by the end of the week or by early next week on the 2021 forgiveness applications. For the loans that are completed forgiveness process, over 99% of the value of the loan has been forgiven. That's true for across all sides of the loan. Most of the loans are being forgiven consistent with the intent of the statute. And the most of loans are forgiven forgiven quickly, meaning that 95% are paid within a 1 week period. So 5% that is remaining are either being reviewed or subject to our sample for review process. Again, our 90-day plus review, our inventory of the loans over 90 days are higher than we like. We're working hard to reduce that inventory, and we have allocated additional resources to it, and also implemented some of the process improvement to increase the efficiency of our review of those populations. So, such as John mentioned, machine learning, we have implemented the machine learning process to it, so that based on the reviews that we have completed and manually, we're processing the alerts and flags for the forgiveness application so that the payments could be processed quickly. We have also introduced a tier review process. So this is basically a risk-based review and focusing more on high-dollar loans, and then spending less time on the smaller dollar loans that has a less risk to the agency. So with that said, Tamas has sent those some of the consideration. This is just a topic for us to discuss. So I'll go over a few of those right now, and if there's any additional question that comes our way, I could also answer that. And then Q&A session, if you have any questions related to regular 7A and 504 loan origination or servicing side, I could also answer those as well. So with that, first question was there any changes anticipated for 3509 and 3510, which is a loan necessary questionnaires, as we are considering all the changes as part of our forgiveness process for the improving the experience for the lenders and the borrower. That those two forms are one of the items that we are considering working closely with our management to see how we could make some improvements on that topic. At this point, it's too early to talk in details, but hopefully we'll see some results coming out in short order. All right, second question that you guys had was the PPP second general forgiveness application. Again, we are accepting the application. We are gearing up to make those payments, forgiveness payments on those, and start the review process early this or later this week, and if not, early next week. And the third, next question is the expansion of 3508, that's application. Yes, that's one of the other topic that we are looking into to see whether we could expand the use of 3508S to a different dollar size. But again, that is something that they were studying and researching and entertaining with the senior managements. I hope to provide some guidance on that in future. Servicing and liquidation of PPP loan. Good question. We have initially drafted a procedure notice on that. However, with the changes to the Economic Act, American Recovery Act, so we are updating that memo, and hopefully it will come out soon. One of the question is until the guidance is released, lenders can use the guidance on the 5057. Keep in mind that the 7A loan and PPP loan, there's a huge difference. For example, PPP loan, as you know, there's no guarantor, personal guarantees, no collaterals, 100% guaranteed by SBA. So from the perspective of servicing and liquidation, there's a bit significant difference in how we see the PPP loan should be serviced and liquidated. We don't expect lenders to spend much time or money collecting the delinquent debt default balance of the PPP loans, even if it's a larger size. However, a lender could allow to follow the 5057 for guidance of servicing actions such as deferment, maturity extensions, and other routine servicing actions. Those additional guidance on those will be published in the procedure notice. But again, our expectation is that these are 100% guaranteed, no collaterals, no guarantors. So our expectation of lenders involved in servicing, and especially in the liquidation side, is very minimal. Next is if the borrowers are still making payments with the PPP loan before they apply for forgiveness and prior to the maturity, will the borrower be entitled to full amount of the loan or the outstanding bonds? PPP borrowers are eligible to receive full forgiveness up to the disbursed amount, even if the borrower start making payments on those prior to the forgiveness. So that is a simple answer there. When is additional guidance coming out on how to return PPP loans for excess loan amount? So there's a procedural notice that was published, 5,278-20078, which covers the guidance on excess loan amount, including guidance on the effect of the excess loan amount, error, and loan forgiveness. So if you have not submitted the forgiveness decision to SBA and you identified an error, an excess amount, lender, you guys should decide your decision to the forgiveness amount should be the excess amount should be reflected, and the correct amount that borrowers are entitled to should be included for your decision to SBA to pay. So if you find out that there's a $100 excess amount, you should delete that, reduce that $100 from your forgiveness decision submitted to SBA. With that, and SBA is under review of these loans and it has not finalized the payment, you should notify SBA and withdraw the forgiveness decision, make the corrections, and then resubmit the forgiveness decision to us. They'll make it clear so that it doesn't involve any accounting corrections that needs to be taking place after forgiveness is done. However, if the lender discovers excess amount error after SBA issues the final forgiveness decision, the lender should notify SBA promptly, and through the platform, lender could send a platform message using the type payment and reconciliation questions, and provide requests in there that the excess amount is received and that you're looking to submit that payment to us. We will log those in and then put it into queue. We are still ironing out the accounting details with our accounting CFO's office to establishing receivables so that when the funds are returned and instructions related to how those funds be returned could be recorded on our end. And then they're working hard on that and hope to have this finished within the next couple of months. So I think those are kind of the questions that we have so far on the hot topics. Again, another topic that we have received was that if there was an error made in a lender's decision for the forgiveness amount, again, lender could make the request for reconciliation, make the correct forgiveness amount through the platform to the payment correction and the reconciliation item. Lenders are required to submit the reasoning and justification for such request for increased forgiveness amount. And we are teeing that up to forgiveness, and we expect to executing those corrections within coming weeks. So with that, I will turn it back to you, Thomas.
Thank you, June. I don't know if you can see me or not, but we're going to go ahead and have our next panelist discussion. Mr. Eddie Ledford, welcome to the stage, and I appreciate your comments today, Eddie. Eddie, I think you're on mute, sir. Sorry about that.
Hey, no problem. Sorry about that. You think after a year and a half of this, I'll be used to taking myself off mute now, but it still happens out there. But what I was saying is, June Kim just did a great job. We've really, all of us have been living PPP for, can't even remember when it started. And, we think back through and remember, Steve Pacharski's team was really instrumental, it seems like years ago, standing up the portal. And then Dinah Seaborn came in, worked with her team on the notices and the IFRs. And, we just heard from June as his team's working everybody through the forgiveness process. And now, during all that, Oakland's kind of been running behind the scenes. We've been out there, we've been monitoring activities, reaching out to the lenders. Most of you guys have more than likely received an email from me in a general mailbox related to maybe 1502 reporting or SAM registrations, or even more recently, forgiveness application processing. Because what we're trying to do is promote that compliance so that we can work through this system together and get these loans resolved to get those to the final resolution. Now, outside of PPP, as John Miller kicked this off, and as you guys heard from the sponsors as we started, there's been a lot of 7A activity and 504 activity out there. Now, in order to keep up with that, Okram has kind of, bifurcated our workforce to where we're really working there on the PPP stuff, same as you guys, but then also similar to most of you guys in the lending community, we've also been looking at our 7A portfolio, and we've done a pretty high number of what we call non-invasive risk-based reviews, where we're able to do risk-based reviews based on data and information that we have available, data analysis, maybe some, looking at credit memos and things of that nature. And we've started kind of ramping up there. Now, as we're looking forward, we realize that PPP is still going to be with us for a while, and when we think about it being with us, it's there both in spirit and also in some scars, because, as we work through this, there was a tremendous amount of focus. We focused on that. As I mentioned, we also have the historical programs, your 7A and your 504 marching on, and as you were generating those loans, it's been, 14 months or so. And as time has passed, we've also seen changes, primarily in the 7A loan program. You guys have probably been watching and realized that you saw information coming through as far as, the 50-10-6 posted. We hit that. There was a lot of great improvements there, a lot of changes there. We have some forms that have changed and updated, and we've got more changes and things coming there through Diane Seaborn's group. And then one of the things that's really hitting us recently that I hope you guys are monitoring is the physical transfer agent. We've seen some traffic going out there and some emails giving you guidance on the change in the FTA and really what that's going to entail, mainly over the next, looks like about 90 to 120 days. Now, from a risk management standpoint, we're watching all those changes and those improvements. Now, we're also looking at the portfolio, and we realize that, everybody goes back to, 2008, 2009, the Great Recession, and the 7A loans that came out of that performed well. And that's what we're kind of expecting that'll happen again. We're thinking that we're going to see some good, good loans that come out of it as lenders credit, appetite for risk kind of changes and things there. And from a Okram standpoint, from some of the initial file review, what we're really looking at is just making sure that lack of a better phrase, that we're not making, silly decisions as we work through with some of the borrowers. We're, in some of these initial file reviews, we're already seeing some very unique behaviors, things that really aren't, maybe it's due to being rusty with 7A, maybe it's due to just the change in the environment out there. But we are quickly, from an Okram standpoint, moving resources to those areas. One of the things that we look at as far as, the behaviors, and I mentioned some of the changes that we've had out there. We did update the increase, the supervision and enforcement SOP. It became effective on January the 1st of this year. The number there is 5053-2. What I'd like for you guys to do is make sure that you read it and you understand it, but most importantly, do everything you can possibly do to stay out of it. We don't want to get into the 5053-2. From an Okram standpoint, increased supervision and enforcement action is not something we enjoy do. We're more apt to the coaching and the training and the partnership where we work with you guys, understand how you've interpreted the program requirements and how you've implemented those, and then what our testing has shown. Now, some of the things that we're seeing to help you, stay compliant, or one of the main things we're seeing right now are mergers and acquisitions. There's a tremendous amount of merger activity out there. You guys are seeing it in your market. Some of the super regionals are merging and things of that nature. When you're looking on the front end of a merger and acquisition, make sure you're looking at the SOP and complying with that. You'll want to make sure that you notify the SBA and that you get everything set up so that those guarantees can transfer. Another thing we're seeing some increased activity from the primary federal regulators, FDIC, NCUA, the Federal Reserve, and so forth. So if you are in that unfortunate circumstance where you receive a public order, make sure that you notify Okram in compliance with the SOP. One thing that we're also seeing a lot of right now, outside of orders and acquisitions, are applicant fees. Make sure that when you're assessing the applicant fees, packaging fees or broker fees and so forth, that you're being reasonable there, that you're documenting everything correctly, and that you're really going through to support that you're being reasonable in your fee structure and it's consistent with what you're doing in your non-SBA guaranteed loans. We're also seeing some kind of fast closings happening. And with some of those fast closings, we're seeing that the proceeds are going into escrow pending disbursement to the borrower. So, make sure that, and we're going to talk about closing a little bit more in a few minutes, but make sure that we're handling that and working through it. With the closing thing, and one thing with being in risk management, when I looked at the agenda that you guys have for the next few sessions, I was looking through it and I read it, and I almost felt like I'd shared an internal email with the team putting this together, because there were a number of elements there that we've have discussions with internally about what we want to focus on over the next 6 to 9 months. Now, one of those things is we go with focus and we have the tools and the resources out there. One thing we have to do is we have to pay for those. So, as you guys have probably seen, you're either in the process of receiving, or maybe you've already received your annual LLMS invoice. So that should be coming to you very soon if you haven't received it already. So just make sure you make a note there that, you receive that. If you don't receive it, I'm sure we'll be in touch. And when you do get the notification, please make sure that you pay that promptly. So, but looking at, what you guys have scheduled going forward, when I look through the kind of the topics over the next couple of months, one of the things that really jumped out at me first was underwriting, and I'm going to say the first thing first, and, coming from a lending background, I just want to emphasize to you guys, be nice to your underwriters. Right now they are under a tremendous amount of pressure trying to digest information. And one of the things they're having to weigh out is, what's commercially reasonable and prudent. When you look over the last 12 months or so, OFA has provided a lot of guidance. You've got notices, you've got SOPs and things of that nature, but you also have to remember that the SOP just establishes the bare minimum requirements. When you look at the SOP and you've got the bare minimum requirements with all that's going on, not only be nice to the underwriters, but make sure you give the underwriters and your approvals plenty of time to work through the deal. We've seen some transactions that were rushed and, items were missed through underwriting that they should have been identified. And that may lead to some early default activities, which you guys know how that ends. If it goes to purchase, we give an additional level of scrutiny and may, result in a repair denial. So also with the underwriting, one of the big items right now that we're getting feedback on is cash flow analysis. Just look at where we've been the last 12 months. We've had, states shut down, reopening. We've had industries got, hit extremely hard, and other industries, almost thrived at the same time. So, I have to go back to, years ago when I was in, first learning commercial credit and everything. And the team that taught me how to underwrite, always said that historical cash flow doesn't repay tomorrow's loan. You have to have a balance there with your historical cash flow as well as the projections. Now, when you look at those projections, you also want to make sure and have a note there that, they're reasonable and that you have good assumptions to support that. So, just make sure with your underwriters, you're given plenty of time and you're doing adequate due diligence there. And as you get aside from underwriting, one of the other topics I saw jump out was construction. We expect to see some construction increase and things like that. Now, I'll tell you firsthand, I'm not current in materials forecasting. I don't know where the price of lumber or concrete is going to go. But I think right now it's going to be a very tough field in the near term as far as forecasting. And I think that we're going to see, cost overrun take on a whole new meaning. So just make sure when you're underwriting those deals that you're doing as much research as you can to keep the cost and the expectations or the estimates in line. We also got to, it's more important than ever, that the basics are done, getting permits, the timing and expiration, prudent underwriting and cost analysis, as well as monitoring and controlling disbursements and things like that. One thing also to be aware of is the infrastructure spending. As you go through, you're going to want to make sure that if, there's additional road work in an area, that it doesn't affect the ingress and the egress. Environmental was on your agenda. With environmental, the main thing that we see there with issues is just a lack of patience. Looking at it and knowing you need to go to a phase 2, but making the decision, hey, let's take our risk here and just see what we can get done. One of the other topics there was closing. Closing is one of the things that Okram's really starting to focus on. The closing attorney panel that you guys have coming up should be extremely interesting. From an Okram standpoint over the years, we've really focused on 159. We've done a lot of targeted 159 reviews. We're actually going to start switching that focus to 1050. We're going to start really looking at the 1050, doing some inspections there. So as you're working through that, make sure that when you're getting ready to go to closing, that you're giving your closing team time to do the documentation, to conduct any inspections and searches, and get that lien perfection. We're also looking at business valuations. Wow, I mean, it's a crazy market out there. We're seeing a lot of turnover and change of ownership. So when you're doing the business valuations, you got to make sure you've got an expert in there and that you're reviewing that valuation and that you understand and agree with it. How did they come to the conclusions? We're already seeing some file inspections. We're seeing some really interesting change of ownership transactions. And you've got some new variables that you have to deal with, PPP loans and things like that. Also secondary market, as we're watching the secondary market go, it's pretty interesting, right? You've got the 90% guarantee, no upfront fee and things like that. So we're seeing a lot of interest in selling and we're monitoring that very closely. We're seeing lenders that are selling before, loans are fully dispersed or maybe the funds are held in escrow and not available to the borrower. So just make sure that you've got compliance there. We saw you guys are having discussions on franchise, which is great. We'll probably see an increase in franchise interest as people look to explore, the entrepreneurs out there look to explore, but want a support team. And then, of course, you guys had debt refinance. Debt refinance is, in my opinion, and based on file review, it's always been difficult and it always will be. When I looked at the flyer, it said, pitfalls. And I think that's probably an understatement if you don't fully understand exactly what you're refinancing and don't fully document. You have to make sure that you're fully documenting these debt refinance deals as you go. Also, you're gonna have to be sure that you really evaluate whether or not the lender that you're refinancing was in a position to sustain a loss. So I think that's really going to be a front runner. Also I saw SOP updates coming down the pike. After this rash of IFRs and notices, I don't think any of us will ever complain if an SOP updates twice in 1 year. So, we're ready for that and exciting. Make sure also, aside from the training, make sure everyone's up to date on fraud. Make sure you're reporting that into the IG and the other authorities. And then right now, as you prepare to move forward, take a look at your teams. Make sure you're aware of what they need and try to get that to them. Some things that we're hearing is training, which is, why you guys are here today. We're seeing some lenders get some specialization and some niche plays out there. Make sure you've got your software up to date and is current and it serves your needs and that policies and procedures, internal controls are there. We're also seeing a lot of interest in third-party engagement. LSP, if you're in doubt or have questions about an LSP agreement, make sure you reach out to LSP agreements at SBA.gov. Maybe even, start to consider if you should have a third party come in and do some sort of reviews. And then the most important thing that we'll kind of end with today from an Okram standpoint is communication. That is the key to success here, internally and externally. As we work within Okram, we try to maintain good channels of communication. We reach out to you guys. We're trying to help. We're trying to identify the risks. So just make sure that, if you hear from us, that please respond in a timely manner and also make sure from a communication standpoint that you're leveraging your different district offices. So with that, I think I've taken up a little bit more than my 10 minutes. So I'll go ahead and turn the floor back over. And I appreciate everyone's time this afternoon.
Awesome. Thank you, Eddie. Really appreciate your time and your comments today. Next, we're going to turn it over to Diana Seaborn, Rosemary Drake, and Linda Riley for some updates and remarks.
Thanks, everyone. And wow, Eddie, you exhausted me in all of that. You covered more in 10 minutes than we do in an hour and a half training with the team. Thanks, everyone, for getting together. I'm really sorry that we can't be in Hilton Head or Asheville because that's always so much fun. Hope you're staying well as your loved ones and are nurturing each other back on the road to recovery, which we all hope we are. This has been a real test of humanity and a call to attention on service, staying grounded and remembering that what we really need the most is each other. So thank you for everything you have done, everything your teams have done to support, the greatest aid effort I think that the United States has ever undertaken through this wonderful little agency. We are the little engine that could with all of our great partners. So many new acronyms and programs and opportunities for this little engine and its partners. And we're very excited about that to get on the backside of these emergency programs and start to build into what we call the longer term recovery or the Build Back Better bridge to normalcy here. And so that's what we want to do now. We have become, along with your help, the largest bank with assets under management, I think with the same team that we had before and maybe even fewer folks. So can't express our gratitude enough for all of you, our 7A, our 504, our micro, our CA lenders, everything that you all did throughout this, your patience and tenacity to stay through it to the end. I've always reiterated our commitment to you, and that is we're long-term players, and those that dabble in the business that we've had for the last 12 months may go away, and some have gone away, but we will be the same agency, and we will work together with you to the end and resolution of all of these emergency programs and enhancing the new. We are behind PPP and we're behind RRF, maybe, finishing up on these shuttered venues. And we still have a significant amount of funds in our disaster loan coffers. So we are looking at doing some reinventions with disaster that will expand our reach and our assistance. So stay tuned and keep watch for those things that may come along as part of the Build Back Better Bridge to Recovery. Improvements in flagship programs. What we've learned a lot about is the fintech influence in what we all do. I know you have too, using platforms and developing things in lightning speed. So part of what we'll be doing is looking at technology in a really big way for the permanent programs going forward. So we also expect to have a lot of new partners. We have been outed as one of the most efficient and effective government programs that are available to businesses. Medium-sized businesses probably in the throes of the emergency, but small businesses, of course, is always our mantra. But kudos to you. It was with your history and tenure with the program and how you deliver and how we work with you that inspired Congress and the Treasury and everyone to select SBA as the vehicle to deliver the largest hit in terms of the recovery and the emergency pandemic that we went through. So, you know, what greater compliment can there be than for you to be called upon to do things that just were way outside of our borders? So they've glimpsed the greatness of our programs now, and so we expect to have a bunch of new lenders. We will be reinventing training, plans and kind of going back to basics and coming out of the chute again in partnership with NAGL and NADCO and the other associations that support you as well, to make sure that we cover those things that Eddie ran through like lightning speed, the things that we're all concerned about in this recovery. And we want your teams to be very well trained and informed about SBAs. And I'm a little insulted about him calling my SOP the bare minimum. We all know that 600 pages is no bare minimum. It does set a minimum standard for things and guidance specific. So we're very proud of the way that it was re-engineered this year with the help of the OFA staff and led by Ginger. So we will continue to provide updates as necessary. As you know, we are an integral part of getting the forgiveness revisions and improvements made and getting them stood up, getting the purchase information and guidance out to you. So we're still working on some legislation that we are implementing for our 504 programs. And so those things are where we're spending our third and likely most of our fourth quarter. The SOP update may roll into the first quarter of 2022, and it's hard to say that already, but we have identified areas that we want to work on, partly because of the pandemic and partly because we continue to hear from you. We still have that email box open and available for comments, and we do look at it from time to time to consider what things we need to do in the SOP to make it clear and easier for you to participate. So I know there's some questions in the hot topic list. I'm going to give Linda and Rosemary just a snippet of time for their comments. We will be looking at new programs in addition to the programs we have. We're very excited, and it's hard not to be excited with the new administration when they bring energy times 10. And those of you who know our returning leader, our recovering leader who came back again, Patrick Kelly, knows what kind of energy and passion he has. And if we were tired and weary from the last year, he just drags you up and says, buy into this too. And I'll be darned if we don't get excited about all those things as well. So thank you so much for joining us today. I love to listen, so I'm going to cut mine short. Linda and Rosemary, if you can keep it brief, let's go to listen to what folks have to say to us. Thank you.
Sure, Diana. Thank you for your remarks as well. And I know that you have been a very busy lady over the last year and a half with all things PPP related, as well as helping on other platforms. We had some of the questions that came in through just the top topics panel discussion, and one of them was about credit elsewhere. As many of you know, that the credit elsewhere bright line test was actually repealed with the CARES Act, and we have gotten many questions about, so what is the requirements for the personal resource test? So just to remind you, OCRM will be looking at the credit elsewhere test during their reviews, as Eddie has alluded to, with the underwriting and giving your underwriters time to underwrite your deals effectively, to look at all the things where credit elsewhere, where it may not be available. So again, 13 CFR 120.101 provides you with very specific details on how to look at credit elsewhere. That bright line test is a great way to look at if there is personal resources outside available. So although it's not required, it is greatly a benchmark that you could continue to use. And it's something that when OCRM looks back, they can say, okay, you used a system in place to see if there's credit elsewhere. I'll pause, Diana, because I see you shaking your head.
You see me lean in when I say yes. Just so that everyone understands, the rule that we implemented last year, right before the start of the pandemic, which did include that bright line test, was repealed by the CARES Act. So we had to stand down that rule entirely. And so what it did was reinstate every guidance that was there before. And unfortunately, that included, removing a finite personal resource test. What Rosemary indicates is it's a good best practice if you want to use it. It's not compulsory. And you know that we are reasonable about applicants needing money to support invalid parents, invalid family members, children in college. And so we're back in that arena again. So if you make the statements and you indicate in your underwriting comments that you've looked at it and you feel that it meets the standard, then that's what you need to address in writing in the file, so that Eddie's team will come along and say that you did consider it, even though there's not a bright line. But we, as you remember, got to some absurdity where we were having folks that had $5 million in the bank that wanted a $2 million loan. And so obviously we need to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money. And we know that that's the exception to the rule. So we just want to say, within reason, SBA's history has been to be reasonable on that personal resources requirement. So back to you, Rosemary.
Thank you, Diana. One of the questions that also was a follow-up had more to do with personal guarantees, and it was related to cash injection from minority owners. Well, when a minority owner has a less than the 20%, of course, equity injection, but they're bringing in all of the equity. The SOP, many of the lenders are saying they feel obligated that particular guarantor needs to guarantee the note. And when you look at the SOP, you're going to look at all of the things necessary for personal guarantee. So despite the minority owner having less than 20%, if they're bringing in all of the equity injection, and they may be relatively in control perhaps of that particular entity, you have to look at, one, is there credit elsewhere? And two, personal guarantees, because that person may have the cash and the equity, but they also may be very involved in that business. So there's two things to look at with regard to the personal guarantee, as well as if that person is truly involved in controlling that particular business. Because if they're bringing that much cash into the business and they're just reducing their ownership, are they really not tied to that business? Diana, I'll pause to you.
Oh, no, the SBA has the right to ask for the guarantee of anyone they deem appropriate for the rules. And I'll just give you the quick example. A parent who's very experienced in an industry wants to assist, as we all do, our children to get started, puts all the money in, knows all about the business, and puts 100% or 90% of the ownership with a young person who has no experience, or any person who has no experience. And so What's pretty obvious there is that, we know where the experience lies, and that's the person we need very committed to the business. Back to you, Mary. Rosemarie.
Thank you.
Mary
Diana.
Rose, whatever your name is. Sorry.
I'll be whatever you need me to be today. I'm your sidekick today.
Call me anything but late for dinner, right?
That's right. Or late for the lottery winnings. So there is also some questions here related about collateral and collateral for affiliates that have outside businesses where they're required to possibly pledge that collateral. I think all of this ties into affiliates, minority owners that have other assets that are involved in a business. So a part of what we're doing now at SBA, and which we should have always been doing, is look at all the owners 100% and really how they are invested in the business. So when we look at collateral, equity injection, and personal guarantees, we're looking at it from a holistic standpoint. And so that if there's collateral that's required to pledge on the loan, regardless of who it is, if they're tied to that business somehow and they're invested in that business, if it's truly not associated with the business, that's one thing. But a lot of times we have assets that are hidden that should have been taken as collateral. And you don't want to get to the point where you're in liquidation and realize that you should have taken that collateral.
No comment, Rosemarie.
Oh, okay, great. So we'll move on. Another question, and we're going to open it up for Q&A in a second, but I want to make sure that we have a lot of the questions that came in with regard to the functionality of our forms. We are still very aware that the functionality of the forms is not working properly. As we are in this pandemic, some of our resources were diverted and we were not able to get our contractors to fix that functionality. We went to a new type of form on the Adobe Acrobat. And so the live feature works very differently. All of the federal government is going to that form. Unfortunately, when you go to a new format and system, it does have some issues with putting up on the website for functionality. Our goal was to have it out at the top of this year. That did not happen. And I've been given a directive that needs to happen ASAP. So I'm on it, Diana. I'm on it with the contractor. So moving down a little further as far as the questions, there was a question about what's available for veterans. And I wanted to make sure that everyone understood that there's temporary relief for the veterans with regard to the upfront fee, as it is with all of our loan programs, and the zero fee, but also as a part of the CARES Act, the permanent change to the program, the upfront guarantee fee for SBA Express loans made to veteran-owned small businesses, that fee will be zero. So just want to make sure that that was a permanent change that you were aware of. And we did provide you with that in our notices when we gave it to you for the fees. And we'll continue to update you with any changes to the fee relief that we currently have. As you know, we are doing the fee relief and that hasn't changed as of yet. So if anything changes with regard to the fee relief, SBA will provide notice to both Congress and to all the constituents. Did I say that politically correct? So that was all the questions that we have from Hot Topics. We do have a question, of course, on PPP. Well,
let's skip that, Rosemarie, and give Linda a chance to grandstand our 504 before they put the hook on me. You know how they like to throw the red card on my presentation. So I'd like to hear from Linda on the 504.
Awesome, Linda.
Hi, thanks, Diana. Well, I want to start off by saying, wow, we just came off the closing call this morning to get ready for the debenture pricing. This is the second largest debenture closing month in the history of the program. Last September 2021 was when they were getting full Section 1112. And obviously there are some that still get the Section 1112 with NAICS, and we still have the fee relief. But I just want to congratulate our CDCs and our third-party lenders for this incredible accomplishment. And we just had a couple of quick reminders. The electronic signature notice was extended. The COVID-19 agreements, that the last month for that will be July. I think that's an efficiency people are looking forward to, of not having to complete those documents. So that's on that. On the Economic Aid Act that was introduced December 27th, there were 5 initiatives for 504. 3 are completed. The fee relief is completed. Section 1112, the final NAICS payments are almost out. And the third-party lender financing has been launched. And debt refi is at OMB. We'll be planning a launch on that as soon as we get the OMB approval. We've got the ALP Express that's about to go into agency clearance. So after agency clearance and OMB approval, we'll be doing announcements and training on that. But one reason I didn't ask for a lot of time today is because we have the 504 Connect call next week, June 15th. So please join us for that. We'll go into more detail on 504. And yes, we're aware that sam.gov has a new interface. So Warren Boyd will be doing a little bit of training for you on that to explain what the new interface is and what documentation and how to capture the new screenshot for the new sam.gov interface. We don't control sam.gov, but we have learned about it and we're ready to give more updates next week. So I just back to you and Rosemary so that we can start the Q&A. And thanks for including me today.
Thank you, Linda. Thomas?
Diana.
Oops.
Diana, before
Rosemary.
we get that, I want to make sure we address the IRS delay. We are aware that there is an IRS delay and our notice expires on June 30th. We are looking at any issues that they're currently having with getting the transcripts processed. From my understanding, several lenders are getting blank forms back because there's no record found because of processing delays. So SBA is aware of that. And we're looking to our partners to find out if there's any fixes, but also our centers to see what their experiences they're having. So as we update that notice, we can give you the proper guidance on how to move forward with closing and processing your loans.
Right. And I'd be very interested in hearing, we have heard from some areas that the IRS is now, again, willing to accept copies and stamping them. So we did that many years ago when we couldn't get things done in a timely manner. And this is not likely to be a real quick solution or resolution from the IRS because we are, along with other agencies, demanding a lot of information from them in addition to, hectic tax seasons that kind of blend from year to year. So if you're hearing or if you have any intel about your local IRS offices or anything that they have indicated would be acceptable to them, we would be interested in hearing because we understand that we're going to need to consider, alternatives. Right now, you have the ability to close without the information and follow up within 6 months, and that, that's still the case. But if there's other solutions other than just not worrying about it, that's not going to work. So we would be interested in hearing from you, and you can send that information either indirectly to our email box or you can communicate with your district office. We're in regular communication with our field offices about things that they hear from you. So, okay. Did we use up our time, Thomas?
You did excellent. If I can, we got about 5 more minutes, and looks like there's a couple questions that are in the chat here. So June, if you're still on, I'd love to have you on, and then
we're all here.
Yeah, I don't know if you see those questions, Rosemary, or if you want, I can go ahead and read.
Rosemary, you want to read them off, and we'll rip through them. Can you see them?
Yes, I can see them.
Okay.
Let me scroll up to the very first one. And one was about the change of ownership with PPP as it relates to an SBA lender is making a loan to a buyer in an asset purchase that does not comply with the escrow requirements for the seller. And the PP loan, the seller's PP loan is not with an SBA lender. And so they're an SBA lender because they're a PPP lender. But it sounds like the seller's lender did not hold the escrow account when the loan was closed. And I imagine the question is, what's the remedy in the event that escrow was not held? And that, I guess, if the loan was not fully forgiven, what would be the requirements?
Yeah, I think that's probably one we're going to need to have come into us directly with the details in order to be able to answer generally what the lender should collect before they do for forgiveness, or what the lender should have if they're going to extend new credit, is all of the documents that your applicant signed so that you can understand exactly how it unfolded. You can give us that information and we can work with you to resolve whatever the issue is.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And so there's another question on refinances, and there's asking when SBA will release guidance on the 504 refinance of 7A loans. As you know, Linda spoke about the debt refinance for 504. And so we're looking at updating all that guidance. And as soon as it goes through clearance, SBA will provide you with that as expeditiously as possible.
Yeah, we're going to use our 4-letter word on that. It's called soon. We like it to really mean what we used to mean to us, but we do have these things in clearance as we speak. So they're moving through the process now.
Okay, here's one for hold codes. For PPP loans in Flight that are in the portal and have hold codes, lenders have provided information. Will lenders get authorization? When will lenders get authorization?
So our team is looking at those whole codes, and if there is supporting documentation, and they're clearing those whole codes, and they're automatically get notified. If you have a particular case that you would like for us to look into, just send me an email, then I'll have our team look into it. Again, email address is chihun.kim@sba.gov.
Boy, are you going to get a lot of emails.
I mean, short time, hopefully. It will be done with this soon, hopefully.
Yes.
Okay, another question, it was anonymous about turn times for non-delegated loans for GP. The last time I looked, it was 9 days to assign, about 14 days on 7A loans to get a decision. I will allow you to look at your screen outs, because your screen outs kind of put a pause on the timeline. So if you're looking at when you submitted the loan and there was a screen out, make sure that you're getting the information back in as quickly as possible to help with getting in your responses back from the centers. And so if you're seeing something different, definitely let us know. I have been in contact with the centers, and I'll let Linda speak with the 504 with regard to any time delays you're seeing with 504 loans.
There's a couple of issues with the center. The center is doing a new delegation within its center so that the loan officers can get back to you faster. And so that we believe will be an efficiency gain that you will see. We also had heard a lot of requests to have assistance with the 504 questions email box. And so the center staff will continue processing, but we found other resource offices that are going to be working with us and responding to questions in the questions box. So you will be getting those responses, and many of you have already started receiving those from that task team. So we are working to be efficient and finding ways to streamline processing. And obviously June can speak more to that, but
let's let June give us an update on anything he knows about his centers.
Yeah, the 7A and 504, both centers are, their volume has gone up tremendously. So you guys should know that. And for the origination as well as the modification that's coming in, it has a tremendous increase by loan volume. At the same time, our resources are limited, and we're trying to provide them with a temporary help. We've been providing them with overtime to cut down on some of the turn time for the 7A and 504. We're looking into providing additional contract help because we are not getting the permanent help at this time. So we're trying to provide additional resources so they could help with the turn time. So again, I thank you for your patience. And again, if you see a outlier out there that is taking really too long, let us know. I will definitely look into it. But what I ask is your patience, and again, like Rosemary said, if making sure that your package is complete so that there is no back and forth with the screen out and additional information needed to process these loans. So thanks.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's kind of hard it's kind of hard to slow down after we've been rushing this, so yeah, we want people not to make mistakes. We want our people not to, but that's one of the things we have to teach ourselves. It's okay, let's wind back down to normal review and normal, things of that nature, because we're in such a hurry that we're overlooking things on our end too. So it's a difficult task, June.
And I will say that we have raised the staffing issues up to the highest levels of the agency, and we're hopeful that we'll get some assistance here in the near future for permanent staffing. But as June mentioned, in the interim, we'll have some temporary help in the center.
Excellent. Well, that's going to kind of chew up all of our time for Q&A and a panel discussion. I honestly, I can't thank you all enough for coming and speaking today. The topics that you discussed, we've been anxiously looking for answers, direction, and information, and appreciate your partnership and all the leadership you guys provide for all of the lenders throughout the entire country and all these programs. So thank you again, John, June, Eddie, Linda, Diana, and Rosemarie. Really appreciate your time today and participating in our panel discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Be safe.
Thank you.
Before we wrap up, I want to take a few minutes. There's a couple reminders out here for everybody. Please, we'd love to give away some free prizes. Please complete the survey after this session. We've got a chance to win a free 2022 conference registration. We will be back in person, barring anything unforeseen, March 9 through 11 in 2022 at the Omni Grove Park Inn in Asheville, North Carolina. So looking forward to seeing everybody in person there if we can and make that happen. But complete the survey. There's a chance to win a free registration for that conference. Also want to take one more minute to chat about the summer retreat, August 27th through 29th. It's the last weekend in August this year. $199 for GLQC members, $299 for non-members. It's going to be our first live in-person event since 2020. Really haven't had anything in person since then. So please check that out if you can attend. We'd love to have you there. There's going to be some good content sessions, but just a great networking session as well. For those who can be there in person. Again, really appreciate everyone's participation in today's event. This is the first event of a 6-month series. So July, August, September, October, November will be the next ones, the first Tuesday of every month. Great topics, and as we kind of discussed, these are important key pieces of what we do on a daily basis to support small businesses. So looking forward to seeing everybody back and hearing about the panelists and discussions that we're going to have for the next breakout sessions on those dates. We also have a winner for today's event. We have a $50 Amazon gift certificate to Ryan Pendleton and Lily Jenkins. Congratulations to you both. $50 Amazon gift card. Appreciate your participation in today's event. After this session, there are live networking sessions. If you go to the Lenders Connect small business community under the SESBLC networking, there are different networking rooms you can join. You should be able to see who's in what room and participate. There's a live chat and kind of have a chance to meet after this session. So please join us in the networking sessions. Say hi to some of our friends we haven't seen in a long time if you have a few more minutes after this general session. And with that, we'll go ahead and end the general session for today. Again, thank you to all of our panelists. Really appreciate your participation. Couldn't have made it without you. And really appreciate the feedback. Have a great rest of your day and look forward to talking to some of you in the networking group sessions here next. Thanks.